Rancher found a dying native girl. By sunrise, 100 warriors surrounded him. He was a man who had lived most of his life under open skies. The ranch belonged to him, but it also felt like it belonged to the land itself. Every morning before the sun rose, he was already outside. He walked the fences, checked the water troughs, and listened to the quiet sounds of the animals. He knew every inch of the property, every bend in the creek, every hidden dip in the ground, every old tree that had stood there for decades. He was not a young man anymore, but he still worked like he was. His hands were rough, his face was weathered, and his eyes had a calm, steady look that made people trust him. That day, the weather had been strange. The sky had been clear in the morning, but by midday, dark clouds had moved in quickly. The wind had picked up, pushing dust across the fields and making the tall grass sway like waves in the ocean. A storm was coming. He could feel it in the air. He had seen many storms in his life, and he knew how quickly they could change the world around him. By late afternoon, the storm had arrived. It didn't bring a loud thunderstorm or heavy rain. Instead, it brought a strong wind that made the ranch feel colder than usual. The sky turned gray, and the air smelled like wet earth and grass. The rancher finished his usual tasks, but he did not feel like going inside. Something in his mind told him to stay outside a little longer. It was the kind of feeling he couldn't explain, but he trusted it anyway. He decided to walk along the creek bed that ran near the edge of his property. The creek had been dry for months, but after the storm, small pools of water had formed in its shallow parts. He walked slowly, listening to the sound of the wind. His boots made soft noises on the dry ground. He looked around, making sure the fence was still standing and that none of his cattle had wandered off. As he walked, he noticed something unusual. A small pile of clothes was lying near a large rock, half covered in dirt. It didn't look like anything he had seen before. The clothes were old and worn, but they were also colorful. He felt a strange feeling in his chest, like a warning. He walked closer. Then he heard it. A soft sound, almost like a whisper. It was so quiet that he almost missed it. But he heard it again, and this time it sounded like a faint cry. He stopped. He looked around carefully. The wind was still blowing, but the sound was there, hiding somewhere in the dry creek bed. He followed the sound, stepping carefully over rocks and broken branches. His heart began to beat faster, but he did not panic. He was a man who had faced many problems before. He knew how to stay calm. He moved closer to the rock where the clothes were. Behind it, in a small hollow of the creek bed, he saw a young girl lying on the ground. She looked like she was very young, maybe 13 or 14 years old. Her hair was tangled and her face was pale. Her eyes were closed. Her body looked small and weak, as if she had not eaten or slept for a long time. The rancher felt a rush of concern. He had never seen a child in this area before. He had seen people pass through sometimes, but he had never found a child alone like this. He crouched down beside her and gently touched her shoulder. "Hey," he said softly. "Hey, are you okay?" She did not respond. He could see that her breathing was shallow. He knew that if he did not act quickly, she could die. He had seen people in the past who needed help, and he knew that time was not something to waste. He looked around for any signs of what had happened. There were no footprints nearby, except for the ones he had just made. The ground around her was dry, and there were no signs of a struggle. It was as if she had simply collapsed there. He searched through his truck to find water. He always kept a bottle in the glove box, just in case. He returned to her with the bottle and poured a small amount into his hand. He held it close to her mouth. "Drink," he whispered. At first, she did not move. Then slowly she opened her eyes. They were dark and tired, but they were still there. She looked at him for a moment, confused and frightened. He smiled gently. He wanted to make her feel safe. "It's okay," he said. "You're safe now." She tried to speak, but her voice was barely a whisper. Her lips were dry. She looked like she had not spoken in days. He realized she had been alone for a long time. Her face was dirty and her clothes were torn. Her body was weak and her hands were trembling. The rancher did not know her name. He did not know where she came from. But he knew one thing. She needed help, and he was the only person around who could give it. He lifted her carefully into his arms. He was not a small man, but the girl was so light that it felt like he was carrying a bundle of cloth. He carried her to his truck, and as he walked, he noticed something around her neck. It was a small necklace with a symbol he did not recognize. It looked like a simple piece of jewelry, but he could feel that it meant something important. He placed her gently in the passenger seat and turned the truck on. The engine started, and the sound of it felt loud in the quiet air. He looked at her again. She was still weak, but she seemed to relax a little now that she was not lying on the ground. He drove slowly toward his house. He needed to get her inside and warm her up. The rancher's home was simple, but it was clean and safe. It had a small kitchen and a few rooms. He kept a first aid kit on hand, and he knew how to use it. He had learned basic medical care from his father when he was young, and he had used those skills many times over the years. When he arrived, he carried the girl into his home and laid her on the couch. He covered her with a blanket and then went to the kitchen to prepare something to drink. He made a small bowl of warm water and added a little sugar, hoping it would help her regain some strength. As he returned to the living room, he noticed something else. The girl's hands were marked with small bruises and her knees were scraped. It was clear that she had been traveling on foot for a long time. She looked like she had been through a hard journey, one that no child should have to face. He sat beside her and waited. He did not want to force her to talk. He wanted her to feel safe first. He knew that if she trusted him, she might share her story. After a few minutes, she opened her eyes again. This time, she looked around the room slowly, as if trying to understand where she was. She seemed afraid, but she also seemed relieved. The rancher spoke softly. "My name is Tom," he said. "I'm a rancher. I found you by the creek. You're safe here." She blinked slowly and looked at him. She did not speak at first. Her eyes were still filled with fear, but she also looked like she was trying to remember something. Then she whispered a name. It was hard to understand at first, but he heard it clearly enough. "Mom," she said. Tom felt a tight feeling in his chest. He could not imagine how scared she must be. He had children of his own, and he knew that if one of them ever went missing, his world would feel like it was falling apart. He held her hand gently. "Do you know where your family is?" he asked. She shook her head slowly. Tears began to form in her eyes. She tried to speak, but her voice was weak. Tom realized that she was not just tired. She was scared. She was also hungry and thirsty. He felt a strong desire to help her, but he also knew that he had to be careful. The area around his ranch was not far from a reservation, and he knew that the local native communities were protective of their people. He also knew that outsiders were not always trusted. The last thing he wanted was to cause more harm by making the wrong choice. He thought about calling the police or the nearest clinic, but he hesitated. He knew that sometimes when authorities were involved, things could become complicated. He had seen it happen before. People could misunderstand, and innocent actions could be taken the wrong way. He did not want to make the girl's situation worse, so he decided to do something else first. He decided to help her himself, at least for now. He gave her a small bowl of soup and sat with her while she ate. He made sure she was warm and comfortable. He asked her simple questions, but he did not push too hard. After a while, she began to speak more clearly. She told him that her name was Ayana. She said she was from a nearby community and that she had been traveling alone because she was trying to escape a situation she could not handle. She did not say much more than that, but the rancher understood enough to know that her life had been difficult. He listened carefully. He did not judge her. He only wanted to understand and help. The night passed slowly. The storm outside had quieted, but the wind still blew gently. The rancher sat in the living room watching the girl sleep. He felt a mix of emotions. He was worried, yes. But he also felt something else, a sense of responsibility. He had found her when she was at her lowest point. He had saved her life, and now he could not just leave her alone again. He knew that the next day would be important. He would need to decide what to do. He could not keep her forever. He could not pretend that she was just a stray animal he had rescued. She was a person, and she had a family somewhere. He wanted to help her find them, but he also knew that the situation might be more complicated than it seemed. As he watched her sleep, he wondered what would happen if she was found by people who were not friendly. He wondered if her community would be angry or relieved. He wondered if they would trust him or blame him. He did not know the answers. But he knew one thing: he had to be careful and he had to be honest. He could not hide the truth. He could not pretend she was not there. He could only do what he could to help. And so he stayed awake a little longer, listening to the quiet sounds of the night. He thought about the creek bed, the wind, the storm, and the small girl he had found. He thought about how fragile life could be and how quickly things could change. He thought about the world beyond his ranch and how different it could be from the life he knew. Then, as the first light of dawn began to appear in the sky, he made a decision. He would do what was right. The morning light came slowly, like a shy visitor. The rancher woke up before the sun fully rose. He had not slept well. His mind was full of questions. He looked at the girl on the couch, and for a moment he felt a deep sadness. She looked smaller in the bright morning light. The blanket covered her body, but he could still see how thin she was. He could see the marks on her arms and knees. He could see the fear still in her eyes. He quietly moved to the kitchen and made a pot of coffee. The smell of coffee filled the air. It was a simple smell, but it made the house feel normal again. He needed something normal. He needed something stable. He sat at the table and thought about what he should do next. He had been thinking about it all night, but he still did not know the best choice. He could call the authorities. He could take the girl to a clinic. He could contact someone from the nearby community. Or he could try to help her himself, at least until she was stronger. The rancher knew the nearest clinic was a long drive away. It was not a quick trip, and he was not sure the girl could handle it. He also knew that the clinic might ask questions. They might want to know where she came from, who she was, and why she was alone. He did not want her to feel like she was being questioned or judged. He thought about the local police. He knew they were supposed to help, but he also knew that sometimes, when the police got involved, the situation became more complicated. He had heard stories of people being treated unfairly or being misunderstood. He did not want the girl to be treated like that. He also thought about the community near the reservation. He knew that the people there were proud and strong. They had their own rules and their own way of handling things. They did not always trust outsiders. The rancher knew this because he had lived near the reservation for many years. He had seen the way people looked at him when he passed by. He had seen the way they guarded their own. He respected that. He understood that trust had to be earned. The rancher poured a cup of coffee and took a deep breath. He decided that he would not call anyone yet. He would first help the girl get stronger. Then he would find a way to connect with her family or community in a respectful way. He wanted to do things the right way. He returned to the living room and sat beside the girl. She was still tired, but her eyes were open now. She looked at him quietly. He smiled gently, hoping to show her that he was not a threat. "Good morning," he said softly. "How are you feeling?" She tried to smile, but it looked like it hurt. She whispered, "Hungry," he nodded. "I can make you something to eat." He stood up and went to the kitchen. He made a simple breakfast, eggs, toast, and a bowl of oatmeal. He brought it to her and placed it carefully on the coffee table. The girl stared at the food for a moment, like she did not know if she could trust it. Then she slowly picked up the spoon and took a bite. Her eyes closed for a moment, and he could see relief on her face. The food tasted good, and her body seemed to relax. The rancher watched her eat, and he felt a small sense of hope. He knew that if she could eat, she would get stronger. If she got stronger, she could speak more clearly. If she spoke more clearly, he could understand her story better. After breakfast, he decided to do something practical. He went outside to check the ranch. He needed to make sure everything was in order. He also wanted to see if there were any signs of anyone else nearby. He walked along the fence line, looking for footprints or anything unusual. The ground near the creek was dry, but he noticed a few footprints that looked like they belonged to a small group of people. They were not fresh, but they were still visible. He followed them for a short distance. They led toward the edge of his property, near a line of trees. He stopped there and looked carefully. The footprints ended near the trees, as if someone had walked into the forest and disappeared. He felt a chill. He did not know who had been there. He did not know if the girl had been with them. He did not know if they were looking for her. He felt a sudden sense of urgency. He realized that the girl might not be safe, even inside his home. He returned to the house quickly. He closed the doors and checked the windows. He wanted to make sure the girl was safe. He also wanted to make sure she felt safe. He did not want her to be afraid of the house. He went back to the living room and sat beside her again. She looked up at him and asked, "Are they coming?" He paused. He did not know what she meant. He looked at her carefully. "Who?" he asked. She swallowed and said, "The ones who took me." The rancher felt a wave of concern. He realized that she was still afraid of something. He wanted to ask more questions, but he did not want to push her. He knew that fear could make people shut down. He needed to be gentle. He decided to change the subject for a moment. He wanted to help her feel calm. He talked about simple things, about the ranch, about the animals, about the weather. He told her about the cows and the horses, and he showed her pictures of his family. He wanted to show her that the world could be kind. After a while, the girl began to relax. She looked more comfortable. She even laughed softly at one of his stories. The rancher felt relieved. He could see that she was starting to trust him, but he knew he could not keep her hidden forever. He needed to find a way to reach out for help without causing more fear. He thought about the best way to do it. He remembered a man he knew who worked near the reservation. The man was a teacher and a community helper. He had always treated people with respect and kindness. He was not a police officer, and he was not a stranger. He was someone who had earned trust over time. The rancher decided to contact him. He did not want to call the police. He wanted someone who understood the community and who could speak with the people there. He hoped that this man could help connect the girl with her family. The rancher went to his phone and looked up the number. He hesitated for a moment, then dialed. The phone rang a few times before the man answered. "Hello," the man said. "Hi, this is Tom," the rancher replied. "I need your help." The man listened carefully as Tom explained the situation. He did not mention any details that could harm the girl. He only said that he had found a young girl near his ranch and that she needed help. There was a long pause. The rancher could feel his heart beating faster. Then the man spoke. "Tom," he said softly, "I will come right away. Don't do anything until I get there." Tom felt a wave of relief. He had expected the man to ask questions or to tell him to call the police, but instead the man sounded calm and understanding. He sounded like someone who knew how to handle a situation like this. The rancher hung up the phone and returned to the living room. He sat beside the girl and told her that someone would come to help. Her eyes widened. She looked nervous again. She asked, "Will they take me away?" Tom shook his head. "No," he said. "They will help you, they will listen, they will make sure you are safe." The girl looked uncertain, but she nodded slowly. They waited. The hours passed slowly. The girl rested while the rancher tried to keep the house quiet and peaceful. He made sure she had water and food. He checked her temperature and made sure she was comfortable. Finally, he saw a vehicle approaching the driveway. It was not a police car. It was a small truck. The rancher recognized the driver. It was the man he had called. The man got out of the truck and walked toward the house. He looked serious, but he also looked kind. The rancher opened the door and greeted him. "Thank you for coming," Tom said. The man nodded. "I'm here to help," he said. The girl watched from the couch, her eyes wide. She looked scared, but she also looked curious. She did not know what to expect. The man approached her slowly and spoke in a calm voice. "Hi," he said. "My name is Daniel. I'm here to help you." "You are safe." The girl looked at him and then looked away. She seemed to be trying to decide if she could trust him. Daniel did not rush. He sat down a few feet away from her and waited. He spoke softly, asking simple questions. He did not push her to talk. He only wanted her to feel comfortable. After a few minutes, the girl began to speak. She told Daniel her name again. She told him where she lived. She told him a little about her family. She did not say everything, but she shared enough to show that she was starting to trust him. Daniel nodded and listened. He wrote down notes, but he did not look like a teacher or a police officer. He looked like a person who cared. Then he looked at the rancher. "Tom," he said, "we need to be careful. Her family may be worried and they may be looking for her. But we also need to make sure she is not in danger. We should take her to a safe place where she can rest and where her family can be contacted." Tom nodded. He trusted Daniel. He could tell that Daniel knew what he was doing. The girl listened quietly. She looked tired, but she seemed to feel a little more secure. Daniel stood up and turned to Tom. "We will leave soon," he said, "but we will not leave you alone. We will come back and let you know what happens." Tom felt a mix of emotions. He felt relief that the girl would be safe. He also felt sadness because he knew he would miss her. He had spent the night caring for her and he had started to feel a connection. But he knew that he had done the right thing. He had helped someone in need. He had made a choice that could change a life. As Daniel prepared to leave with the girl, Tom watched them carefully. He wanted to make sure she was okay. He wanted to make sure she was not afraid. The girl stood slowly. She looked at Tom for a moment, her eyes filled with tears. She whispered, "Thank you." Tom nodded. He felt a lump in his throat. He nodded again, and then he watched as Daniel led her out of the house and into the truck. The truck drove away, leaving Tom standing on his porch. He watched until it disappeared over the horizon. He felt a quiet emptiness. He had helped someone, but he did not know what would happen next. He could only hope that she would be safe. He turned back to his house and began to clean up. He put the blankets away and washed the dishes. He tried to return to his normal life, but he knew that things would never be the same. He thought about the girl, and he hoped that she would find her family. He hoped that she would find peace. He hoped that she would be able to live a better life. As the day went on, the rancher continued his work, but he could not shake the feeling that something else was happening. He felt like he had stepped into a story that was larger than his ranch. He felt like he had become part of a world he did not fully understand. He looked at the sky and wondered what the next day would bring. The rancher did not sleep well that night. Even though the house was quiet again, his mind was not. He kept thinking about the girl. He kept thinking about the way she had looked at him when she first woke up. He kept thinking about the fear in her eyes. He kept thinking about the small necklace she wore. He kept thinking about the footprints near the creek. He kept thinking about the fact that someone might be searching for her. He tried to keep himself busy. He checked the fences. He fed the cattle. He fixed a broken gate. He did everything he could to feel like he was in control of something. But his mind kept returning to the girl. He wondered what had happened to her. He wondered if she was safe. He wondered if she was going to be okay. As the sun began to rise, he looked toward the road. He hoped to see Daniel return with good news, but the road remained quiet. He waited all morning, but no one came. The rancher began to feel a small fear inside him. He began to wonder if he had made a mistake by getting involved. He tried to tell himself that he had done the right thing. He reminded himself that the girl had needed help, and he had helped her. He reminded himself that Daniel was a good man and that he would take care of things. He tried to trust that everything would work out. But then, in the middle of the afternoon, something happened that made his heart race. He saw a group of vehicles approaching his ranch from the road. They were not police cars. They were trucks, and there were many of them. The rancher could see that the people inside were not from his area. They looked different, and their faces were serious. The rancher did not know who they were, but he knew that they were coming for a reason. He felt a sudden sense of worry. He walked to the porch and watched as the trucks moved closer. The vehicles stopped at the edge of his property. The people inside got out. They were a large group, more than he could count. They were dressed in simple clothing, but many of them wore traditional jewelry and symbols that he did not recognize. Their faces were calm, but their eyes were focused. The rancher felt his stomach tighten. He did not know what to do. He wanted to go out and speak with them, but he also felt that he should stay inside. He did not want to make things worse. He felt like a stranger in his own home. He watched as the group formed a line. They stood together, facing his house. The rancher could feel the silence in the air. It was not a quiet silence. It was the kind of silence that feels heavy, like something important is about to happen. The rancher's heart began to beat faster. He thought about the girl. He thought about the possibility that these people were looking for her. He thought about the possibility that they might blame him for taking her away. He felt a strong fear. He stepped back from the porch and walked inside. He locked the door. He felt like a child hiding from something he did not understand. He did not want to be rude, but he also did not want to be taken by surprise. He sat at the kitchen table and waited. He listened carefully. He could hear the sounds of people moving outside. He could hear quiet talking. He could not understand the words, but he could feel the tension. Then he heard a knock on the door. The rancher stood up slowly. He walked to the door and looked through the window. He could see a man standing outside. The man looked older with gray hair and a serious face. He wore a simple jacket and held his hands in front of him. He did not look threatening, but he looked like someone who was used to being listened to. The rancher opened the door carefully. "Hello," he said. The man looked at him. His eyes were steady. He spoke in a calm voice. "We need to talk," he said. The rancher nodded. "Come in," he said. "Please come in." The man entered the house, followed by a few others. They did not rush. They did not look angry. They looked like people who had come with a purpose. They sat down at the kitchen table. The rancher felt nervous, but he tried to remain calm. He poured water into glasses and offered them to the visitors. They accepted. The rancher wanted to show respect. He wanted to show that he was not afraid. The man who spoke first looked at the rancher and asked, "Do you know where the girl is?" The rancher paused. He did not want to lie. He did not want to hide the truth. But he also knew that telling the truth could cause trouble. He thought about Daniel. He thought about the girl's safety. He thought about the possibility that these people might be angry. He took a deep breath and said, "I found her yesterday. I brought her here. She was hurt and weak. She needed help. I called a man from your community to help her." The visitors looked at each other. The rancher could feel the tension. He could feel the weight of their silence. Then the older man spoke again. "You should not have taken her," he said. The rancher felt a shock. He did not understand why he was being blamed. He had saved her. He had tried to help her. He did not understand why that was wrong. He replied, "I didn't know who she was, I didn't know her family, I just saw a child in danger, I did what I could." The older man listened carefully. He did not interrupt. He looked at the rancher with a serious expression. Then he said, "We understand that you helped her, but you must understand that she belongs to our people. We were looking for her, we were worried. When she went missing, we thought she was taken. We thought someone had harmed her." The rancher nodded slowly. He could feel the truth in the man's words. He could feel the worry and fear that must have been inside the community. He realized that he had not thought about how the girl's disappearance would affect her family. He had not thought about how they might feel. He had only thought about saving her. He felt a deep sadness. He realized that his good intentions might have caused more fear and confusion. He felt ashamed. He did not want to be seen as a problem. He wanted to be seen as someone who had helped. The older man continued, "We need to know if she is safe. We need to know where she is now." The rancher nodded. "I do not know," he said. "I called Daniel and he took her. I thought he would bring her back to you." The older man's face changed slightly. He looked at the rancher with a new expression. It was not anger, it was concern. He looked like someone who was trying to understand what had happened. He asked, "Did Daniel say where he would take her?" The rancher shook his head. "No, he did not. He only said he would help." The older man stood up. He looked at the rancher and said, "We need to find her. We need to make sure she is safe. We will search for her." The rancher felt his heart drop. He had not expected that. He did not know what to do. He had not planned for this. He had not thought about being part of a search. He asked, "Can I help?" The older man looked at him for a moment. Then he nodded. "Yes," he said. "You can help, but you must be honest. You must tell us everything you know." The rancher agreed. He told them everything he knew. He told them where he found the girl. He told them about the creek bed. He told them about the footprints. He told them about the necklace. He told them about Daniel. He told them about the house. The older man listened carefully. He did not interrupt. He wrote down notes. He asked a few questions. He wanted to make sure he understood everything. After a while, the older man looked at the rancher and said, "We will search the area. We will find her, but we will also need to speak with Daniel." The rancher nodded. He knew that this was the right thing to do. He felt a small relief. He felt like the truth was finally coming out. The older man and the group left the house. They returned to their vehicles. The rancher watched them carefully as they moved toward the road. He could see that they were organized. He could see that they were serious. He could see that they cared deeply. As they drove away, the rancher felt a strange mix of emotions. He felt relief that they were taking action. He felt worry about the girl. He felt a deep respect for the community. He realized that he had stepped into a world he did not fully understand. He walked back into his house and sat at the table. He stared at the empty chair where the visitors had been sitting. He felt tired. He felt like he had been pulled into something much bigger than his ranch. He looked out the window and saw the road. He thought about Daniel and wondered where he was. He thought about the girl and wondered if she was safe. The sun began to set. The sky turned orange and pink. The rancher sat quietly waiting. He did not know what the next day would bring. He only knew that he had to be honest, and he had to be ready for whatever came next. The night after the group left, the rancher felt restless. The house felt empty, even though he was alone most of the time. The silence was different now. It felt heavy, like something important was missing. He could not stop thinking about the girl. He could not stop thinking about the group that had come to his house. He could not stop thinking about Daniel. He tried to do his usual work, but he could not focus. He fed the cattle, but his mind was somewhere else. He checked the fences, but he kept looking toward the road, expecting to see a vehicle coming. He kept thinking about the possibility that the girl might still be in danger. He kept thinking about the possibility that she might be lost somewhere, scared and alone. He decided to do something he had not done before. He went to his desk and wrote down everything he remembered from the day he found the girl. He wrote down the exact place where he found her. He wrote down the details of her clothing and the necklace. He wrote down the footprints near the creek. He wrote down everything he could remember. He knew that if the group was going to search, they would need accurate information. He wanted to help in any way he could. He also wrote a letter to Daniel. He did not know where Daniel was, but he hoped the letter would reach him. In the letter, he thanked Daniel for helping the girl and asked him to let him know where the girl was and how she was doing. He also asked Daniel to come back to the ranch and talk to the group. He wanted to make sure that everyone understood what had happened. After writing the letter, the rancher went to bed. He tried to sleep, but he could not. He kept waking up, listening for sounds outside. He felt like he was waiting for something. Then, in the early hours of the morning, he heard a sound. It was a quiet sound, but it was enough to wake him fully. He sat up in bed and listened carefully. The sound was coming from outside. It sounded like a vehicle. He got out of bed and went to the window. He saw a small truck driving slowly down the road. It stopped near his driveway. The lights were off, but the truck's shape was visible in the darkness. The rancher felt a sudden rush of fear. He did not know who was in the truck. He did not know if it was the group coming back or if it was someone else. He grabbed his jacket and walked outside. The air was cold. The sky was dark, but the stars were bright. He walked toward the truck slowly, keeping his hands visible so that no one would think he was dangerous. As he approached, the truck's lights turned on. He saw a man sitting inside. The man looked tired. He had a small bag on the passenger seat. The rancher recognized him immediately. "Daniel," the rancher said. Daniel stepped out of the truck. He looked at the rancher with a serious expression. "I'm sorry I didn't come back sooner," Daniel said. "There was a lot to do." The rancher nodded. "Where is she?" he asked. Daniel looked at him for a moment. Then he said, "She is safe." The rancher felt a wave of relief. He could feel his body relax for the first time in days. "Where did you take her?" the rancher asked. Daniel hesitated. He looked down at the ground for a moment as if he was thinking carefully about what to say. Then he spoke. "I took her to a safe place," Daniel said. "A place where she can rest. A place where she can speak with her family." The rancher felt confused. "But the group said they were searching for her," he said. "They came to my house. They were worried." Daniel nodded. "They were worried," he said, "but they also needed time to organize. They had to gather people. They had to prepare. They wanted to make sure they did everything the right way." The rancher listened carefully. He could sense that Daniel was trying to explain something important. He could sense that there was more to the story. Daniel continued, "I brought her to a place where she would be safe and where her family could find her. But I did not tell them where she was right away. I wanted to make sure she was ready to see them." The rancher frowned. "Why?" Daniel looked at him and said, "Because she was scared. She was afraid of what her family might say. She was afraid of being judged. She was afraid of being sent back to the situation she ran away from." The rancher felt a deep sadness. He understood now that the girl was not just lost. She was trying to escape something. He had not fully understood that before. He had thought she was just a child who had gotten hurt. But now he realized that her story was more complicated. Daniel continued, "I spoke with her. I listened to her. I told her that she did not have to be afraid. I told her that she could speak freely. I told her that her family loved her, but they also needed to understand what she was feeling." The rancher nodded slowly. He could see the care in Daniel's eyes. He could see that Daniel was not just helping the girl. He was helping the whole situation to become calm and safe. Daniel looked at the rancher and said, "I think the best thing is for you to meet them." The rancher felt surprised. "Meet who?" he asked. Daniel took a deep breath and said, "The group that came to your house, the ones who were worried about her. They want to talk to you. They want to hear your story. They want to understand what happened." The rancher felt a wave of fear again. He had not expected to meet them. He had not expected to speak with them directly. He did not know what to say. He did not know if they would trust him. But he also knew that he had to be honest. He knew that if he wanted to help, he had to be brave. He nodded. "Okay," he said. Daniel smiled slightly. "Good," he said. "We will go to them together." They drove together to a place near the edge of the reservation. The road was dusty and the sun was just starting to rise. The rancher could see the trees in the distance. He could see the hills. He could see the quiet land that seemed to stretch forever. They arrived at a small clearing. There were many people there. The group was gathered in a circle. The rancher could see that they were waiting. They were quiet, but they were not angry. They looked calm, but their eyes were focused. The rancher felt nervous. He stepped out of the truck slowly. He looked at the people. He could feel their eyes on him. He could feel their attention. Daniel walked beside him. Daniel spoke to the group in their language. The rancher did not understand the words, but he could see that the group was listening carefully. He could see that Daniel was explaining something. After a few minutes, the group quieted down. The older man who had come to the rancher's house stepped forward. He looked at the rancher and spoke in English. "We have heard your story," he said. "We know that you found her. We know that you tried to help, but we need to know more." The rancher nodded. He took a deep breath. He spoke honestly. "I found her near the creek," he said. "She was weak and hurt. I brought her here. I gave her food and water. I called Daniel. I did not know she was from your community. I did not know that she was missing." The group listened carefully. The rancher could feel their attention. He could feel their judgment, but he could also feel their care. He could feel that they wanted to understand. The older man nodded slowly. "Thank you for telling the truth," he said. "We appreciate that." The rancher felt a small relief. He could feel the tension in the air soften. He could feel that the group was not angry anymore. He could feel that they were willing to listen. Then the older man spoke again. "We want to thank you," he said. "You saved her life. She would not have survived without help." The rancher felt his eyes sting. He felt a deep emotion. He had not expected to be thanked. He had expected to be blamed. He had expected to be questioned. But instead, he was being thanked. He felt a deep sense of relief. He felt like he was finally understood. The older man continued, "But we also need to talk about what happened next. We need to talk about why she ran away. We need to talk about how we can help her." The rancher nodded. He listened carefully. He knew that this was not just about him. This was about the girl and her life. The group talked quietly for a long time. They spoke about the importance of family, the importance of community, and the importance of listening. They spoke about how sometimes young people feel lost or afraid. They spoke about how sometimes they need help, but they do not know how to ask for it. The rancher listened. He learned a lot that day. He learned that the girl's story was not simple. He learned that her fear was real. He learned that her family loved her, but they also had their own challenges. He learned that the community was strong, but they also had to protect their own. As the meeting ended, the older man looked at the rancher and said, "You are welcome here. You are not our enemy. You are a person who helped someone in need." The rancher felt a warmth in his chest. He felt grateful. He felt like he had been given a chance to learn. He nodded and said, "Thank you. I want to help in any way I can." The group nodded. They gave him a small smile. They did not say much, but their eyes showed that they trusted him. As the rancher left the clearing and drove back to his ranch, he felt different. He felt like he had become part of something bigger. He felt like he had learned something important. He looked at the land around him and realized that the world was not as simple as he had thought. He realized that people had stories, and those stories were often complicated. He realized that helping someone was not always easy, but it was always important. He returned to his ranch and sat on his porch. He looked at the sky. The sun was high now. The day felt bright, but the rancher felt a quiet seriousness inside him. He knew that the story was not over. He knew that there were still questions to be answered. He thought about the girl and wondered how she was doing. He wondered if she was finally safe. He wondered if she would find peace. He knew that the next part of the story would be important. He knew that the next part would show what happened when the girl's family finally reunited with her and how the community responded. He sat quietly, waiting for the next chapter to begin. The rancher woke up to the gentle sound of birds singing in the early morning. The air was fresh, and the sky was painted in soft shades of pink and gold. He felt a calmness he had not felt in days, but his thoughts still lingered on the girl. He wondered how she was, what she was feeling, and if she was finally safe with her family and community. Today, he knew, would bring answers. He prepared a simple breakfast and sat at the table, thinking about the events of the past few days. The hours seemed to stretch endlessly, filled with uncertainty, yet also with a sense of hope. He remembered how fragile she had seemed when he first found her, and how much courage it had taken just for her to survive until he discovered her. He realized that every small choice he had made mattered: a blanket, a glass of water, a comforting smile. He understood that even small acts of kindness could ripple into something far greater than he could imagine. Later in the morning, he heard the sound of a vehicle approaching. He stepped outside and saw Daniel's truck pulling up slowly. Daniel stepped out carrying a small bundle of papers and a gentle smile. He looked tired, but there was relief in his expression. "Good morning," Daniel said softly. "We have news." The rancher's heart beat faster. He had been waiting for this moment, the moment when he would know that the girl was safe and that the story was moving toward a resolution. Daniel invited him into the truck. "We're going to visit her family," Daniel said. "They have been worried, and now it's time for her to be with them. They've prepared a welcome, and they want to meet the person who helped her." The rancher nodded. He felt a mixture of nervousness and pride. He had never imagined he would be part of something like this. He had never imagined he would meet a family and community who were so grateful yet cautious, so welcoming yet protective. As they drove, Daniel explained what had happened after the rancher had brought the girl to his home. "She rested for a night and spoke with me," Daniel said. "She told me what happened to her, why she ran away, and what she feared. I helped her feel safe. We made sure she was ready to see her family, and then we contacted them. They've been preparing to welcome her home with care and respect." The rancher listened carefully. He felt a deep sense of responsibility, but he also felt pride. He realized that this was more than a story of rescue. It was a story of trust, care, and understanding. Soon they arrived at a small, quiet community on the edge of the reservation. The sun was higher in the sky now, and the streets were filled with the sounds of daily life. Children laughing, elders speaking softly, dogs running freely. The rancher could feel the warmth of the community even before he saw the people. A group had gathered in a small, open area near a large tree. They were waiting patiently, their expressions a mixture of concern and hope. At the center of the group, he recognized the older man who had come to his ranch a few days ago. He stepped forward when he saw Daniel and the rancher approaching. "Thank you for bringing her back safely," the older man said. His voice was calm, but it carried weight and sincerity. "She is our child, and we are grateful for your help." The rancher felt a lump in his throat. He nodded, trying to find words. "I just did what anyone would do," he said softly. "I saw someone in need, and I helped." The older man smiled slightly. "Sometimes seeing is not enough," he said. "It takes courage to act. You acted with care, and for that we thank you." Daniel motioned toward a young girl standing slightly behind the group. Her eyes widened when she saw the rancher, and for a moment she hesitated. Then she took a small step forward. The rancher could see the recognition in her eyes, the understanding that he had been the one to care for her when she was most vulnerable. She walked slowly toward him. "Thank you," she whispered. Her voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of everything she had endured. The rancher knelt down slightly to meet her gaze. "You don't have to thank me," he said gently. "You were brave. You are safe now, and that is what matters." She smiled faintly, the first real smile he had seen since finding her. It was a smile of trust, of relief, and of hope. Her family approached, and the rancher watched quietly. He could see the love in their eyes, the relief, the cautious happiness. They hugged her, and she hugged them back. The reunion was tender, gentle, and full of emotion. It was clear that this was more than a physical homecoming. It was a reunion of hearts, a restoration of bonds that had been strained by fear and separation. The older man turned to the rancher. "Would you like to stay for a while?" he asked. "We want you to meet everyone and see that she is truly safe." The rancher nodded. He stepped into the circle, feeling a warmth he had not expected. The community welcomed him with quiet nods and gentle smiles. They shared small stories of the girl, how she had grown, what she loved, and what they hoped for her future. They explained how they cared for each other, how their lives were connected, and how every person mattered. The rancher listened and learned. He realized that the girl's story was part of something larger than himself. He understood that helping someone could connect him to people and communities he had never known. He felt honored to be part of that story. They shared food together, simple, hearty dishes that smelled of warmth and tradition. The girl sat beside her family, laughing quietly, sharing small stories and slowly opening up. The rancher watched, feeling a sense of completeness. He realized that this was what true help meant, not just providing immediate care, but creating a bridge of trust, understanding, and respect. As the day passed, the rancher learned more about the girl's family. They spoke of the importance of listening to young people, of guiding without controlling, and of caring deeply while respecting individuality. The rancher realized that this approach was different from what he had seen in many places. It was not about authority or rules. It was about understanding, patience, and love. Later, the girl took the rancher aside. "I was scared at first," she said quietly. "I didn't know who to trust, but you helped me. You made me feel safe." The rancher smiled. "I'm glad you felt safe," he said. "You were very brave even when things were hard." She nodded. "I think I can be strong now," she said, "because I know people care, because I know I am not alone." The rancher felt a deep sense of satisfaction. He realized that the act of helping someone could create ripples of courage and trust. He realized that his simple choice to care had made a lasting difference in someone's life. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, the rancher said his goodbyes. The girl hugged him tightly, and her family thanked him again. He could feel the gratitude in their eyes and their hearts. He realized that he had been welcomed into their story and that this connection would stay with him forever. As he drove back to his ranch, he reflected on everything that had happened. He thought about the fear, the uncertainty, and the care that had guided him through the days. He thought about the courage of the girl, the wisdom of her family, and the patience of Daniel. He realized that every moment mattered, every small choice, every act of kindness, every word spoken with care. Back at his ranch, he stood on the porch and looked at the horizon. The land stretched out endlessly, bathed in the warm glow of the setting sun. He felt a quiet peace. He knew that the world could be complicated and full of challenges, but he also knew that it was full of kindness, courage, and connection. He thought about the girl, safe and surrounded by people who loved her. He thought about the lessons he had learned about trust, understanding, and the importance of listening. He realized that helping someone could change not just one life, but many lives. As the stars began to appear in the sky, the rancher felt a deep sense of hope. He knew that the story was complete in one way, but he also knew that life would continue to bring challenges and opportunities to help. He felt ready for whatever came next, knowing that courage, care, and honesty could guide him through anything. That night, he went to bed with a heart full of gratitude. He had been part of a story that mattered. He had learned that even in difficult situations, kindness and courage could make a difference. He had learned that helping someone could create bonds that last a lifetime. And as he drifted off to sleep, he knew that the girl would grow up knowing she was loved, cared for, and never alone. And he knew that he would always remember the days when he found a child in need, and by showing care and courage, helped to bring hope and peace to an entire community.